Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Talk. I am here with Phil Craig from Cape Independence Advocacy Group. That's a bit of a mouthful. And I see that we already have people in the comments. Luckily, Phil, I believe you can also see the comments on your side. So if you see any questions that you want to address, please feel free to interrupt at any moment, and I'll bring it. I'll pop it up, and we can address it. We have Gentle Inflatables is with us, Yanni Vandervalt, and the Pet Zoo Film Crew is also here. Interesting name. All right, so we're here to talk about the upcoming March for Independence on the 5th of December. I'm going to quickly just pop up here. We're going to share a screen quickly so that people can also see, because I've got everything ready, right? There you go. This is the event, has a lot of the details, but also your website, I believe, is also quite informative. So I thought, as a nice little start, and then I'll ask questions as they come along. Everything is it's from 9. You get there at 9 for 10. Outside Clotsville High. The Y is there. Everything's on this website, guys. Link is in the description as well if you guys want to check it out. I have one question though, because I'm confused. Okay. First of all, say hi. Sorry, I'm being rude. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Joe. Great to meet you guys.
All right. So I wanted to know why this route and why Stellenbosch.
Okay. No, look. So a fair question, and lots of people have asked the same thing, because I think the expectations that we would start in Cape Town. The honest answer is we knew that we needed to move, and the movement needed to move beyond social media and into and onto the ground, and we also needed to move beyond middle class internet supporters and to start to get to the sort of the real people of the Western Cape. But in this particular instance, a number of activists, actually two guys, particularly a guy called Jordan Scow, who many people may know, and another guy called Storm Mayer, are independence activists. They came to us, and they had a passion for this, and they went into to some of the poorer communities and to talk to people about independence and take the message. And they ended up in Cloutesville. And they made a video which you can Google. It's on our YouTube channel, but it's called Opsy Rimmer. And that was made in Cloutesville. And the people, it was a really nice video that people could relate to. And it was ordinary people just expressing their frustrations and their fears. And it was something that was powerful. So when we were thinking about where do we make the sort of first pin in the ground for a march for Cape Independence, we said, well, look, you know what? The people of Cloutesville have made this video. We helped them edit it, but we weren't involved initially with the filming at all. So we're going to support the peoples of Cloutesville. And actually, often with these things, where you start to get some synergy afterwards. So one of the interesting things is that a lot of the people who ended up in Cloutesville originally were actually displaced from District 6, which made it all the more powerful and symbolic, given that sort of Cape history. And it was really important for us that we showed people that independence wasn't, one of the big accusations of independence is just a white movement. And it absolutely isn't the case, but the accusation comes time and time again. And we know from our polling that actually 56% of independence supporters are not white. So it's never been the case that it's a white movement, but so I think we were able to kill a lot of birds with this one stone. So we're now marching from Cloutesville, which for those people that don't know, it is a relatively poor coloured community in Stellenbosch. And we're marching on Stellenbosch, which is also symbolic, because I think it's really critical that people understand that the Cape Independence, we say on our website, Cape Independence is about a better life for all. And at some point, you have to give life and meaning to those words for all. And what better way to stand with a community who's already started to stand for themselves. So that's why we started in Cluttersville, and I think that's quite a worthy thing, and we're very proud to have done that. And the people of Cluttersville have responded very positive to us reaching out.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to being there. Speaking of which, so tomorrow, as you can see, I got on the screen 9:45, the March briefing at Cluttersville High School. It's a 3.6-kilometer walk. You arrive in Die Brock, and then you hand over a letter of demand, and then there's speeches at Die Brock. I wanted to also ask, so there's a shuttle service. I'm a little bit confused. Do we, I'm coming through on Saturday, right? I'm taking my car. Do I park in Cluttersville or at Die Brock? And then a shuttle takes me from Die Brock to Cluttersville.
So the shuttle will work in two directions, but for people who are coming from outside of Stellenbosch, you go to Die Brock, because the march is going to end at Die Brock. And Die Brock is right in the center of Stellenbosch. There's plenty of parking. So you park your car in Stellenbosch, you get on the free shuttle, and the shuttle takes you. So you're effectively starting at the end of the march, and the free shuttle is taking you to the start of the march. So when you finish the march, you'll end up back at the end where your car is. And then at that point in time, the shuttle then will work in reverse. So at the end of the march, the shuttle will now take the people of Cluttersville who didn't have to get the shuttle in the first place because they're in Cluttersville. So the shuttle will take the people of Cluttersville then back to. So that's where the two end. So it depends from where you stay. If you live in Cluttersville, you'll get the shuttle at the end of the march. If you come from out of town, you'll get it at the beginning of the march.
Fantastic. And it's a free shuttle service, guys. From 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning it will operate, and then obviously at the end of the march again, as Phil has mentioned. Now, there's security and rules, but I'm not going to go through all this stuff. You guys can easily go to the website and check out all this stuff. There's a schedule for everything that's going to happen. There's even going to be refreshments. So there's going to be water, free water, bottled water will be available. And please feel free to support them by giving them a donation. One thing that is maybe you can briefly discuss with us right now is the letter of demand. Just briefly. People can go and read it, but briefly, what are the most important things to take away from this?
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly skip back on just a couple of the things that you talked about there. First of all, the shuttle runs from 8 till 9:30, not 8:30 to 9:30. That's fine. And although we've only put water on there, there also will be some cake pies that have been provided free of charge too. We're very cognizant that a lot of the people who are marching on are not particularly wealthy, for us it's really important. And in fact, actually, a lot of people have helped with donations. We've tried to encourage the better off marchers to subsidize food for the less well off, and I think it's really symbolic. What's critical for us in terms of Cape Independence is this unity, this oneness. We're trying to say, look, you know what, all right, we've had this South African culture, hasn't really worked for reasons that are beyond our control, but we always had a Cape culture. Before South Africa existed, we had the Cape culture, and we want to have this the one people in the Cape where we look after each other, and we're trying to see that come through in everything that we do. So we're also providing free food.
Fantastic. So letter of demand, briefly, what's the most important thing you feel that is in this letter of demand?
So I haven't
on Saturday.
I'm ashamed to say I haven't got a copy in front of me, so I'm just going to go from memory. But in essence, the letter of demand is runs in. Thank you. It runs in sets. So you'll see the top section is things that we're asking for the DA to acknowledge. And at the bottom is what we're asking them to promise to do, to give assurances. So in the initial, we're just asking for them to recognise that the Western Cape has a different ideology from the rest of South Africa, that it has a different culture from the rest of South Africa, and that it has a different demographic from the rest of South Africa. And we've tried to be very, very non-confrontational in that, and we've tried to be extremely factual. So we're just trying to establish the facts as they are in absolute terms, that kind of say, look, you know what, there is this difference between the Western Cape and South Africa. We definitely don't want to create division between anybody. We just want to establish the facts so that when we go on to talk about what comes next, We're not disputing that. So none of these should be contentious, but we're asking for the DA just to acknowledge that the facts as we state them are in fact true, that we have a different ideology, that we have a different culture, and we have a different demographic from the rest of South Africa. And then having done that, we're then asking them to give us some assurances. And these are really about democracy. So it's we're asking them to, first of all, to say, look, you know what, that actually, if there's enough evidence that people want independence, that as the Democratic Alliance, presuming they're still the government of the Western Cape, then they respect democracy. And if there's evidence that the majority of people in the Western Cape want a referendum on independence, that they accede to that wish. Then, if the referendum is in favour of independence, that the DA then negotiates on behalf of the people of the Western Cape in good faith with the government of South Africa to enact that referendum. And then finally, the one that's perhaps more provocative for them, but we've put it there all the same, is and if the government of South Africa says no and refuses to recognise the democratic wishes of the people of South Africa, that they then unilaterally pursue independence in accordance with the principles of international politics and law. So they're the things. So it's a step-by-step approach. There's nothing there that's terribly controversial, but I think it's just really important that we as an independent movement and the 36% of people in the Western Cape lay out our case to the DA and say, look, this is important to us. We want independence, and we don't want it undemocratically. We want it if everybody wants it. But actually, democracy is a two-way street. And actually, we are willing to respect democracy, but you must respect democracy too. And if this is something that the majority of people in the Western Cape want, as the democratically elected government of the Western Cape, you must now enact our wishes.
Yes, and you mentioned something now that I wanted to ask you about, right? So let's say the ANC, the government now doesn't recognize or doesn't want to, because there's a lot of this going around where the people are saying, yeah, but the ANC is never going to allow it. It's never going to happen because the ANC is going to say no. So I want you to clarify that, because as far as I understand it, they think there's another process, there's another route that can be taken, correct?
Yeah, it is. So we often use, and it's a very good example. We use the example of divorce, because I think it's a really great. This is a divorce we're talking about. We want to file for a divorce from South Africa, and we'd really like it to be amicable. In many ways, it's much the same process. If you want to get divorced from your partner, that starts off with a polite comment. First of all, it starts off with a decision. Have you decided that the relationship's over and you really want to get divorced? That's part one. The same thing. That's the referendum. Do we really want to get divorced from South Africa? If we decide we do want to get divorced, then the next step is then we want to try and do that as amicably as possible. We want to have a consent paper in divorce. We want to sit down and have a sensible discussion that says, look, how do we make this happen where it's a difficult situation, but let's just sort this out as adults. And then at the end of that, if one party says, well, look, you know what, you're just not leaving, and they're completely intransigent, then you go to the final straw. So now then you go to the divorce courts, and you get attorneys involved. And now it becomes a little less amicable, but there's still rights and wrongs and processes. But you now have to follow those processes, which take the decision out of the hands of the emotional people, and now the decision is made by other parties who aren't personally involved. It's exactly the same situation here. First of all, do we want to get divorced? The referendum. Secondly, can we have a sensible discussion with the ANC to say, look, you know what, the people of the Western Cape don't want to be part of South Africa anymore, and therefore let us go. In the biblical reference, set my people free. If the ANC says, no, you're not going, it doesn't matter what you want, you're not going, then obviously, no normal people are going to sit around and say, well, look, I'm sorry, okay, well, we're just going to accede to you. And the ANC certainly didn't accede to that themselves when the boot was on the other foot. They went to the international community, they kicked up a hell of a fuss, and rightly so. And they made sure that regardless of what the National Party wanted, that apartheid was ended and justice prevailed, and the independence movement will do exactly the same thing in reverse. At that point in time, we will involve the international community, we'll involve our rights under international law, and we'll take the ANC out of the equation. We will then move beyond them, and at that point in time, other parties will decide. And effectively, I don't want to get into the legal stuff because it's been talked about ad nauseum and it's the last resort. But the bottom line is, it comes down to the decision of the international community. If the Western Cape and the ANC can't agree, the final decision is made by the international community, not the ANC and not the Western Cape. So but there are the three processes. But if you think of it as a divorce, that's how it goes. So the ANC, can make it very difficult, but ultimately they cannot stop independence if it's what the people of the Western Cape truly want.
And when you say international community, are you talking like the UN, or does it just need to be like one country like Canada to recognize Cape as an independent country? Like, is it? And I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but in the simplest form, what do you mean by international community? Like every single country in the world, or just, like, I don't know if you can explain that.
Sure. Look, and I think people do tend to oversimplify it. It's incredibly complex, and the rules there aren't any hard and fast rules, and what rules do exist don't get followed. So so effectively it's a political negotiation. And anybody says you just go to the UN and do this, or you just have to get that one party and you do that, that isn't the case. It's far messier than that. But the bottom line is, if you come to the business end of this, and you've now got a dispute, and effectively the dispute is this: that the government of South Africa, let's take the parties out of it, the government of South Africa is now saying, actually, by the Western Cape wanting independence, you are impinging upon our sovereignty. That is our sovereign territory, and you are now wanting to remove that sovereign territory from us. So that's their claim. And the Western Cape government, speaking on behalf of its people, is asserting its right to self-determination, which is we have a right to political and cultural and self-determination. And therefore, these two rights conflict. And at that point in time, in essence, you have Pretoria saying the Western Cape is our territory. And you have the Western Cape saying, no, it's not Pretoria's territory, it's our territory. And then the rest of the world simply decides which one it works. So at that point in time, what do international governments do? Does the US continue to deal with Pretoria in terms of the affairs of the Western Cape? And if it does, then you didn't get independence. Or does the government say to Pretoria, the US government say to Pretoria, listen, sorry guys, but we've recognised that the Western Cape's wish for independence, and we are going to deal with the government of Cape Town. So it's about a balance of a balance of power, and it's not one country, but clearly, if you had three tiny little countries in the Pacific Islands somewhere, they're not going to. They might recognise you as an independent country, but it's going to have no meaning. Whereas, if you had the US, the UK, Belgium, the Baltic states, all of a sudden that's a substantial block. And if they start dealing with the Western Cape government, it isn't really going to matter what the ANC government says. The independence will have happened, and that is exactly how independence happens.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, the way you explain it, it is a very long process, no doubt, but it's not impossible, despite a lot of people saying, oh, it's never going to happen. It's impossible. ANC will never let it happen. Well, that's the thing. ANC can't really do much about it, number one. Number two, if we can get international recognition, that's another step forward. I think another thing that people get worried about, because I had a conversation recently about this with someone else, and they piped up immediately and said, like, no, it's not going to happen. It doesn't make any sense. Western Cape's not going to survive on its own. There's minerals and resources that we need from the rest of South Africa. How are we going to survive? The wine and the tourism is not enough for our economy. That was their excuse for why they think it's not going to happen. What do you think about that? Are there things in place to kind of, I don't know, negotiate, if I can put it that way?
Look, and for me, look, we can talk about all of these things, but for me, it's the wrong question. Is the Western Cape economically viable? Beyond question, no serious economist will tell you that the Western Cape will do anything other than thrive. Actually, no sensible politician will tell you that. It's not even a point of debate. Yes, we have spoken to economists, but it's irrelevant. It's common sense. You only have to go and look at the government's own figures, go to Stats SA. The Western Cape, there are two provinces in South Africa that support the rest of South Africa, and that's Gauteng and the Western Cape. We pay in. We would be 38% better off overnight if we didn't change any of the disastrous policies of the ANC. if we change the policies, we'll be immeasurably better off. And the same with the legal thing. They're not the focus. We have all this focus on what if. And I see a question there. Why didn't I think it's Tertia, why didn't the ULA get it right? For the same reason that nobody's got it right, because actually people start at the end rather than the beginning. The beginning is the people of the Western Cape have to want independence, and right now they don't. That's why we're marching. That's why we're campaigning. We ran a poll. 36% of the people of the Western Cape want independence. That isn't a majority. So until such times as the people of the Western Cape democratically want independence, we won't get it, and we shouldn't get it, because that's democracy. We have to abide by the wishes of the majority. So the focus, first and foremost, is it a good idea, and do we want it? And that is where the focus must actually be. And if people want independence, and if we get to that point where we're past the 50% threshold and the majority want independence, then we can start looking about, okay, how do we make this happen? Coming back to our divorce analogy, the first thing you decide is not how will it work at the lawyers. Actually, you first decide, do I want to get divorced or not? Do I want to spend the rest of my life with this person because I love them? Or do I think they're another arsehole and I want to get them out of my life?
Some people stay married because they are worried about the divorce. Just by the way, some people are like, now I'm going to split everything and she's going to take half my shit.
But then they're Muppets. You only get one life and you've got to be happy. And whether that's in a relationship or whether that's in terms of a country, that we've only been, the Western Cape has only been a part of South Africa for 110 years, 111 years at the end of the day, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. Of that 111 years, how many have been good? We've had a disaster with the ANC. We've had apartheid before that. It really hasn't worked out terribly well for anybody. Let's just call it a day and get on and be good neighbours. And the same way, people say, the doomsayers and this can't be done are actually they're their own worst enemy. They're the people that do more harm to this than good. First of all, decide, would it be a good idea? And if it will be a good idea, then support it and let's see if it can happen. And if we get to the end and you find, okay, gosh, it was a problem all along and we can't make it happen, then at least we've tried. But to give up just because you think it's going to be too hard, that is not the recipe for a happy life, is it? And we can have a good relationship with South Africa afterwards. I accept it's not full independence, but look at Namibia. Namibia was effectively a part of South Africa. It was effectively a province of South Africa. I know lots of people want to be pedantic and say it was never truly part of South Africa, because it wasn't. But effectively, it was a province of South Africa, and it's not. Now there's a border, and you have to go through the customs. But lots of people have got friends on both sides of the border, and we carry on perfectly well. In fact, they share a currency. We wouldn't want to do that. The bottom line is, this is just something that happens on a regular basis internationally with countries, and ever more so. But it's always been the case. The United States has ceded, Switzerland has ceded. And the list, we won't go on to it, but it's long and endless. Not endless. Yes. Look, let's focus first and foremost. What do people want?
Yeah. And I think, speaking about what people want, I think people are also concerned about, and I've got it here, the borders. Like one of the other arguments that people make is, what does that mean for me? Like, now I'm going to be kicked out of the Western Cape. Or some people that live in Joburg might think like, oh, well, then I can't go to the Western Cape anymore, or I can't visit my family anymore. Now I've got to, my family's going to get like a different passport or whatever the case may be, which obviously is going to happen. But I've heard you say this before, like, you're going to operate like any other country. Anybody is welcome to come legally. That's as simple as that. Those that are in the Western Cape will obviously get their citizenship, I imagine.
Sure. Yeah, look, nobody's getting kicked out. We of course, you've got to understand the people who don't want independence, they don't try and make nice arguments. They pick the dirty arguments and they throw it's racist and it's this, and nobody's getting kicked out. Nobody. At the end of the day, it's about the people of the Western Cape, the collective people of the Western Cape, all Western Cape citizens, whoever they are, what color they are, what race they are, what religion they are. We're going to have a referendum of all of the registered voters in the Western Cape, and everybody who is here legally can stay. Those that are here illegally, then obviously we'll have to deal with in a compassionate, legal, and sensible way. And all of us are going to have friends on both sides of the border when the border comes along. And life will just go on. And again, let's just look at Namibia. just how does it work with Namibia? How is it going to work any difference with the Western Cape? If you want to go to Etosha, if you want to go to Windhoek, if you want to go to the Fish River Canyon or Ice, you can just go and do it. If you've got friends there, you go and see them. It'll be exactly the same in the Western Cape. We're going to be huge trading partners with each other. We're going to have this shared history, shared languages crossing over the border. We're not going to be sworn enemies. We're actually going to end up we're probably going to sulk a little bit with each other for the first few years, and then once that's over and done with, we're going to get on and be allies.
I don't know, Phil. I've never heard of any divorced couple that remain friends, to be honest. But
okay, let me tell you that my first wife organized my wedding with my second wife. We discussed on the day, and we said, look, who's best to organize the arrangements? And I said, look, nobody is better than my first wife. So my first wife was at my wedding to my second wife. So I can promise you, it does happen.
All right. I stand corrected. I just want to get to some of these questions that we got coming in. So Cassian asks, EMilio, Phil Craig, how likely is His Zulu Majesty likely to reclaim his sovereignty? Would this motion aid in, your claim for Cape independence?
So, look, we get asked this a lot, and there's an awful lot. I know that IRR and Franz Cronje particularly feels that Zulu independence would be highly significant for Cape independence. And I think in the past, a lot of people have said, look, Zulu independence would have to go first. I suspect that the argument for Cape independence is much further advanced than the argument for Zulu independence. But I think, South Africa as a unitary state has been a disaster. Yeah, it has been a disaster for everybody. Whoever's been in charge, it's been a disaster for whoever hasn't been in charge. That's the reality, because we've got this forced amalgamation that was a colonial construct that just hasn't worked. We've got how many different nations squeezed into one, and there's always going to be this discontent. And I think inevitably we're seeing it around the world. In any case, we're seeing countries break down into smaller and smaller units that are more homogeneous, and it's natural. So I think inevitably Cape independence would definitely spur on the Zulu nation, who always have. Look, I don't know much about Zulu claims for independence, but I know the sort of the inkling is there. The spark has already been lit for a long time, and clearly. But I mean, it's not just them. Don't forget the Xhosa people. One of the Xhosa kings that tried to secede from South Africa in 2010. Some of the Khoi people want to secede. So it's not just the Western Cape, but obviously everybody else must fight their own battles. But logically speaking, if we look at what's going to happen in 100 years' time, is South Africa going to look like South Africa does now? No, it's not. It's going to be broken up into smaller parts. I can't tell you what those parts were, and it was always thus so. Look at us. We've got Lesotho and Swaziland cut out of what would be South Africa. At one point in time, Botswana and Zimbabwe and Namibia were and Lesotho and Swaziland were effectively all part of one big territory that was governed largely by the British. And now it's already been broken up, and it's just a logical conclusion. So sorry, a bit of a long-winded answer, but I think yes, I think the two would be beneficial to each other for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I agree with that. I mean, like if the one secedes, like if Zululand seceded, then it's like, well, hello, we can too now. I think it might actually cause a ripple effect. And just to answer Gentle Inflatables, who asked, how will it work with the people who have a home in Eastern Cape and Cape Town? I imagine it would be the same if, you have a home now in Cape Town or South Africa, and you have a home in England or USA. It's pretty much the same thing. Boom.
Yeah, look, people can only be registered to vote in one place. So when it comes down to citizenship, you're registered where you're registered, and at that point, so in terms of let's take it for the referendum, and I suspect we're talking about here, you are either going to be a citizen, you're either going to be registered to vote in the Eastern Cape, in which case you don't have a vote in the referendum, or you're registered to vote in the Western Cape, and you do have a vote, but in which case, when it comes to the national elections of the Eastern Cape, you won't have a vote there. It's where you're on the electoral roll.
Okay. That makes sense though. All right. So yeah, like this is also another concern. Would us current Cape citizens pay more higher rates in taxes if we break free from RSA? Um, is that something we can answer now?
Very easily. No, you'll pay less, substantially less. South Africa is one of the highest tax rates in the world. Not particularly tax rates itself. Why South Africa tax rates are so high is that you pay a relatively high tax in the first place, and then all of the services that you're supposed to get for those taxes you don't get, and then you have to go and buy the services again out of your own pocket. So you pay for medical, and then you pay medical aid. You pay for the police, then you go and have a security firm. You pay for schooling, then you have to go and pay school fees on top, and so on and so on. And when you add that up, our tax burden is colossally high and ridiculously so. And as we said a while ago, first of all, just in terms of pure allocation of existing funds, 38% would be 38% off overnight if we stopped paying to South Africa and kept the money for ourselves. We would be 38% better off, so we could continue the same level of services. Look, the level of services that we provide are terrible, and we've got terrible social problems in the Western Cape, and independence isn't going to solve those overnight. We've still got, if we want to have a bright future, people say, well, look, how is the Western Cape not going to turn into a repeat of South Africa? Well, it's not going to, because we're going to actually fix the problems rather than stealing all of the money. And fundamentally, we need to have a 25 or a 30-year plan that gets people out of townships, gets people into jobs, that gets crime under control, and actually gets us to be a genuine, truly nation. And I think Fardil Adams from the Cape Coloured Congress was interviewed at Brockenfell, and he absolutely nailed it. He said, asked him what his message was for the EFF, and he said, my message is this: racism is not the biggest problem that South Africa faces. Poverty is. And if we fix poverty, then racism will resolve itself, and that's absolutely the case. And so I think we're going to see both. We're going to have to see a reduction in taxes, because we definitely want to grow our economy, bring investment in, create jobs for people, and that'll become a cyclical effect. I mean, look, we limp along at 0.5%, 1% growth. It's just absolutely tragic. And the Western Cape already has, even under the ANC shackles, the Western Cape is producing 40% of all new jobs in South Africa, and it houses 11% of the population. So even under ANC policy, the Western Cape has outperformed the rest of the country. Take away those ridiculous policies that are holding us back, and our economy will thrive. We'll be able to get taxation to a more manageable level, but we'll also be able to increase spending on the things that are going to make us a one nation, a proper country that gives us all a future and gets people out of living out of terrible conditions. Because anybody who thinks that we can have we can have a long-term future while people are living sort of six to a garden shed is deluding themselves. That's something we have to fix, and we don't have to fix it because we're socialists, because I sure as hell I'm not a socialist, but I'm a human being, and I understand how people think and how people work, and actually nobody can be happy in that. And actually, we can fix that, and we can fix that evilly, and we can fix that without having to destroy the quality of lives of other people. Actually, when they use that phrase when South Africa first started, and actually we thrived, that all boats will rise, and that is the key. That is the key. It was always the key to solving South Africa, and it got abandoned. It worked very well before it got abandoned, and it's the key to solving the Western Cape. All boats must rise. We've all got to do better in the Western Cape.
Yeah, this is extremely exciting, and I think you mentioned socialism. I watched President Ramaphosa's economic recovery plan, and I can't tell you how many times I heard the word social this, social that, social this, social that, social economic, social this, social that. And I was like, this isn't the way it should go. And now Moodley apparently is downgrading us, or we can expect more downgrades from Moodley, because apparently those guys are not impressed with the recovery plan. So yeah, I think lockdown has definitely shown South Africans the flaws of the ANC, and in doing so has made a lot of people angry, and we're all hopeful for change. And with the Western Cape, this is something that I think, like I said, could be a ripple effect. Who knows? Maybe maybe other provinces will be like, you know what, we also want to break away from South Africa. We don't know what's going to happen. But speaking of which, I wanted to quickly go back to the flag for a moment. What do you know about this flag? Can you explain to us what the colors mean and why there's an X?
Sure. So look, the colours are the traditional colours of the Western Cape. So actually, if you go back in terms of most of the Cape flags, depending on who else was running the Cape, including the current provincial flag, the predominant colours are red, white, and blue. And I guess that comes back from the history, and I guess probably because the British colours are red, white, and blue, the Dutch colours are red, white, and blue, and that's carried on. If you go and look at the Western Province rugby shirt, you go, what colours are they? Red, white, and blue. So you'll see that most of the independence movements gravitate to this red, white, and blue. This is not the flag of the Western Cape. Let's just be perfectly clear about that. This is just something that we wanted, some graphical symbolization that when people saw something, they could instantly say, that's independence. And this is something that we have chosen. And the reason we've used an X is because X is symbolic of democracy. It's the cross. It's the cross that you make when you go to the ballot box, when you vote in the referendum. But this is not, one of the things we'll talk a lot about. We don't have policies, because even though I can talk about things that I believe in, it's not our choice. The whole point of an independent Western Cape is the biggest problem we have in the Western Cape now is that we don't have democracy. What we vote for and what we get are two different things. The Western Cape systematically votes to reject the ANC at every opportunity it gets, but gets them foisted upon them anyway. That's what we're trying to solve. So once we move into independence, and once we then end up with a new dispensation, we'll have a general election. And in the general election, the political parties will stand, and who those political parties will be, I don't know, but I guess we'll still have the DA, we'll still have the ANC, we'll still have the EFF, we'll still have the Freedom Front. We're not talking about banning anybody. Ultimately, we want democracy. But the people of the Western, and those political, and maybe there'll be some new political parties, but those political parties then will advocate and say, listen, these are the policies that we want to see in an independent Western Cape, and the people of the independent Western Cape will then vote for the party they want the most, and those will be the policies that will be enacted. It's not for us to decide what they are. And in that whole process, we also, in terms of what our flag is going to be, we can't choose. The CIAG cannot choose a flag for the people of the Western Cape. We'll have to choose your own flag. At this point in time, but what we want, and you'll start to see it when we're at the march, we want to see that when you start to see that flag, people are talking about an independent Western Cape. At the march, you'll see that flag everywhere. Because we want to get this symbol so that when you see a car drive past with a sticker or a car sock, or you see a flag, you can know that person supports Cape independence. And we want this visibility so that people can say, independence, so they can feel that this thing's coming. And that's what that symbol's about. People say, why didn't we use our own logo? We didn't use our own logo because our own logo is ours. That's ours. That represents our values. That symbol, that flag, doesn't represent, it's not ours, it's yours. It's anybody who wants it. If you want to have an independent Western Cape, take that flag, do something with it, fly it. We want just a symbol that says, I'm up for this. That's your kind of way of expressing your support for an independent Western Cape. And then when we get there, you can choose whatever flag you like. I couldn't care less what color it is. None of us could. It certainly doesn't have to be that one. For us, that's just a symbol to stand out. And of course, I've seen all of the stuff. Of course, as usual, the haters want to say it's based on the American South flag, or it's based on the British flag, or it's based on which is utter nonsense. But I mean, it's fine. You can't argue with fools. At the end of the day, we've explained on our website why it's there, why we've used those colors, what the X means. People believe us, don't believe us. That's up to them. At the end of the day, the bottom line is, as always, when we first brought the flag out, and there was a lot of criticism. Now we hardly get anything from there. And actually what we've started to get an awful lot is, where can I buy it? How can I get one of those flags? How do I, because it's like all those things, people get used to it, and that starts to mean something to them. And I'm hoping after this march, even more so, when people have seen Stellenbosch looking in a little different shade of color than the one they normally see, that all of a sudden, it'll start to mean something even more to people.
Interesting. I thought this was the official flag, but it's not. Okay, it's just for the movement. I was thinking maybe one day you might see that flag behind me on the wall. But no, that's interesting. Okay, that was you mentioned something about the parties, when we secede and stuff like that. So someone was asking earlier, if we secede, does that mean, here it is, Behave Z307 was saying, upon secession, who would rule Western Cape, the current ruling party DA, or would there be an intermediate elections for the new government? I think you kind of answered that briefly now, is basically we're going to re-elect. Correct?
Yeah, look, they'll clearly have to be an interim government. Yeah, there's going to be a period of time. Obviously, there can't be a vacuum. So whoever the existing government in the Western Cape will obviously have a large part to play in that interim period. But almost certainly it'll be a government of national unity, much the same as it was in '94. So I'm now speculating wildly, but let's assume that it's before 2024. So now it's going to be the DA. At that point in time, they would probably invite other partners who'd supported independence in, and I would like to see that all of the voices of those who are pushing for an independent Cape, and perhaps even those that were opposing it, were brought into the government, and actually we planned fair and free elections that everybody could be happy with, so we could have the government of our choice.
Yes, and this actually goes very well into what I wanted to talk about next with you. Is I saw this post, which I believe was very exciting for a lot of people. I couldn't read the article, unfortunately. I don't know a lot of Afrikaans. Side here, you said something at the end. You say at the end, in the last paragraph, you say, "Give yourselves a big pat on the back. The next time when some naysayers say it's never going to happen, you can say it's already started." I love that line. What does this mean, though? What does this mean? Why are you so excited about this article?
So look, so why are we excited? Because this article was hugely significant. And I think one of the things that people don't understand is just how far we've come. Look, the CIAG, which is our organization, was formed in March of this year. So we are 8 months old. And look, we're not working alone. We're working in collaboration with the other independence movements, and I wouldn't want to take away from their wonderful efforts because we're all pulling together. But obviously, I'm here to talk about our pot. But in that period, collectively, as a group of organizations, we have moved the needle more than most people have any comprehension. So if we look at where we started the year, if you go back and try and see how many independence articles are written in 2019, you probably won't be able to find one. Maybe you'll find one. It just was a topic that wasn't really spoken about. The DA never spoke about independence. In SOPA this year, the Freedom Front, Peter Marais from the Freedom Front, who, by the way, will be at the march on Saturday, representing the Brein Bemachting Beveging. So Peter Marais challenged Alan Windey, that said, "Look, you know what? It's great having all of these policies at the State of Province address that you want to carry out, but you haven't got any authority to carry them out, and you need to call a referendum on provincial autonomy." And there was no response from the DA. So just take that one thing. So there we are in February. The DA have been challenged to call a referendum and saying nothing. In this article, the DA are pursuing a change in the law so they can call a referendum on federal autonomy. That is a massive change for the government in there. They're also talking about, and you'll see in a lot of our articles, if you read the articles that I have written, and we talk about articles. There wasn't a single article, maybe there's one article about independence in 2019. There has probably been 50 or 60. There's probably been 30 that the independence movements had placed, and on top of that, then there's been all of these counter opinions, which is fantastic. So all of a sudden, the DA are talking about independence. There were 2 weeks ago, Ronaldo House interviewed Helen Ziller. Now, here's a situation where they would never have talked about independence. Now you've got two people working for the DA talking amongst themselves on air, and they feel they can't have a live interview without talking about Cape independence. And they tried to mock it, and but it didn't matter. The point is that the very fact that they would at the press club, Corne Mulder, the Freedom Front have come out, and said, look, we support Cape independence. There was some derision of Corne Mulder. He handled it very well. And Corne said, listen, 12 months ago, there's not a chance you would have been here allowing me to speak on this platform about Cape independence. But actually, here I am. And what are we talking about? We're talking about Cape independence. In this article, the DA are saying that they are going to start defying the ANC government when they're making illogical decisions, which is something we've been calling on them to do, to get a pair of balls and to stand up more and just stop going along with it. And we've been pushing them, saying the people want more. We don't want to hear there's nothing we can do about it because the ANC this. We actually say, look, you know what? The people are behind you. Resist the ANC. And this article says they're going to do that. And then it also says we're going to pursue the missing part of legislation. This isn't, look, it's constitutional. They already have the right for under the Constitution for the Premier of the Western Cape to call a referendum. But the Referendums Act dates back to pre-94 and it is incomplete. So the Referendums Act, so nothing's got to be changed per se. We've already got the constitutional right for a referendum, but the law has not been updated. So it's unconstitutional. So now they're calling to have the law made constitutional so they can call a referendum. So that's the significance. Just to think in how much have they started to move in 7 months, 8 months. They've moved from not federalism to formally adopting federalism, to wanting to pave the way to hold a referendum, to defying the ANC government. And more than that, behind the scenes, they're telling us that they were shocked by how much support there was for independence where they were campaigning in the local elections. So behind the scenes, the DA have moved massively. And they're also starting to recognize, for the right reasons, that the independence movement is flipping useful for them. Because had they taken these really bold steps in the previous dispensation, then they might have been seen as quite wild and extreme and irresponsible. But what's happened now is the independence movement has opened that Overton window. They talk about that window, that number of things that can be spoken about. So now that independence is an option for the people of the Western Cape. All of a sudden, federalism isn't extreme. When Peter Maria asked for federal autonomy in February, it was considered too extreme. But actually, by November, it's been passed by the rank and file of the DA in the Western Cape. It's no longer extreme. Actually, it's moderate compared to what we're asking for. So whether you support independence or not, it's really powerful for the people of the Western Cape to have this independent movement, because all of a sudden we are getting a DA that suddenly is empowered, has got a pair of balls, and more than that, it's got its back to the wall. They know, now that actually we're pushing independence, that 36% of people of the Western Cape want independence, that a poll shows that if they oppose independence, they will lose their outright majority, that their main political competitor that they were losing support to in the last elections, the Freedom Front, now openly endorses Cape independence. We know that almost certainly the Cape Coloured Congress are going to be endorsing Cape independence. Their leader supports it, but they haven't formally adopted the policy yet. So the DA is now under huge political pressure, and it's moving in a way that's really beneficial to the people of the Western Cape. So this was this was kind of the symbolism that actually at the DA. So this article was the Western Cape conference where they moved these resolutions, people from the floor. And interesting, the guy that proposed the article, proposed the resolution, is a guy called Emil Langehoven. And Emil and I had a little spar over Cape independence on Twitter about 2 months before this. So it was really sweet for me. And Emil basically tried to say the people of the Western Cape don't want independence, and we never hear about independence in the Western Cape. And he challenged me to come out with him and walk around his community and see how unimportant it was. And I took him up on his challenge, and I said, Emil, I'll come with you, but I'll come with you on one condition. We go and we knock on the door of 100 of your constituencies, and if I can convince 51 or more of them to support Cape independence, that you'll propose formally independence to the DA in the Western Cape. And he said no. He wouldn't do it. So he chickened out on his own dare. But here we are, and this is the power of politics. This is the power that we as individuals have. Look, I'm a very ordinary guy. Let nobody think that I have degrees coming out of my ear, or I'm a successful businessman, or I'm just a very ordinary family guy. And we can change those things. Here's that guy, and I'm not saying that directly had a consequence. I'm sure it didn't, but they all play a part. Here's the guy being called out, and 2 months later, that very same person is the person proposing these changes in the elective, not the elective conference, the conference for the DA, and that's the significance. That's the power this movement has. So yes, we've achieved masses and masses of things, and this is just the start. And that's the significance of the march. The march is if we get this right, if people turn up in enough numbers to support this, this will just drive the DA over the edge. They are really, really uncomfortable about this march. They literally asked us that the mayor of Stellenbosch asked, would we not prefer to go and march in Cape Town? I kid you not. I have it in writing. I wrote to them and they asked, could we just please go and march somewhere else? And we responded by saying, no, actually, you are responsible to and actually, I'm only following government policy. I'm a loyal member of the DA and I'm doing what the party tells them. We responded and said, look, you are entitled to be loyal to your party. But actually, the people of Clutersville are also entitled to elect a different mayor. And you work for us. We the people, and actually these are the people in Stellenbosch, and we're coming to you, and you're up for election in 2021, and when you're up for election in 2021, the Freedom Front are going to be in Stellenbosch promoting independence. The Cape Party is going to be in Stellenbosch promoting independence, and quite possibly the Cape Coloured Congress is going to be in Stellenbosch promoting independence. So actually, get with the program or suffer the electoral consequences, and it's power to the people, and that's what this movement is. And what we've achieved in this year is exciting. It's really, really exciting, and far more than most people really understand, because most of it's happening behind the scenes, but it's been massive.
Well, Phil, I can tell you're really excited, and rightfully so. I see that we have 9 minutes left, so I don't want to go over time. I want people to watch this, so we're going to keep it to an hour. There's just a few things that very quickly I would like to ask you. One, is there a limit to the amount of people that can be at the march on Saturday?
Yes, and don't let that stop a single person from coming.
I like that answer.
It's plenty. We did everything right. We have our permits. Everything is placed, and we've got permission for more than enough. And actually, our problem is not going to be too many people coming. South Africans and particularly middle class South Africans aren't very good at marching. So the biggest fear is that people who support this don't get off their bums and they think that somebody else is going to go there, and we turn up and we end up having a mediocre display, and we take all of this pressure that we've placed on the DA just dissipates, because all of a sudden they say, well, look, people couldn't be bothered to come out and march. Why must we worry? So this is so important that people get there. So please don't worry about if I think it's highly unlikely we'll get over the number. We've got a goodly number. It's not, it's not an EFF situation where we've got a permit for 100. We've got a permit for a lot more than that. And if more turn up than they're supposed to be, then and I get a fine or a slap on the wrist, I'll take that in the name of Cape Independence. Come, march for Cape Independence, and make this thing happen.
Fantastic. And then should this, I imagine that this will not be the only march you're going to do, because someone asked if you're going to do one, I think it was on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken, Tableview area.
Sure. So people have asked that, and so the honest answer is, look, I sure as hell hope it's not the last one. But actually, just if you're in Table Bay, Stellenbosch is 45 minutes. If you really care about Cape Independence, get in your car and come to Stellenbosch. Don't be so lazy. And I'm not picking on that person, because a lot of people are asking that. Please come. At the end of the day, if this is a success, you can't imagine how much hard work it's taken us to organize this march, and how much money it's cost us. And bear in mind that we're a little organization. We're all volunteers. We've all got full-time jobs. We will probably have spent 100,000 rand on this march. 100,000 rand that we've had to raise 500 rand at a time, and we've probably lost 2 or 3 weeks' work, all of us, by putting this together. It's been a monumental effort to make this happen. So it's not just, can you just organize a march that's a bit more convenient for me? We've put blood, sweat, and tears into this for a future. And actually, you know what? It is a bit heartbreaking when you hear people saying, look, you know what? Can't you march in Cape Town, or can't you march in, if you're 7 hours away, fair enough. Fair enough. But if you're 45 minutes away, come, get in your car. Because if you...
Phil, that's Cape Town for you. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but I mean, I used to do a lot of shows as we were discussing off air. I brought the comedy to people in the northern suburbs. Some literally around the corner in the same street that they lived, and I knew a few people who never came to a show. So don't take it personally. Cape Town has a weird way of showing their support.
No, I understand that, and I make it for the right reasons. This is critical. Laughing apart, this is critical. This is a pivotal moment in Cape independence. We have turned the pressure cooker up to max. We've grafted for 8 months, and we've really got the government moving substantially, and this is the decisive moment. This is the moment in the Rugby World Cup final where you're 5 minutes from the line, and actually you need to now score the try. It's critical, and we're either going to make a massive leap forward on Saturday, or we're going to take a massive leap backwards. And actually, it's not us that decides that. We have done our part. It's the people who either come or don't come that will be literally deciding the future of Cape Independence. It really is that important.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, for those of you that are watching, if you can make it, awesome, please do. I am going to be live streaming the march as well, but that's really for everybody around the world, for people in Joburg, for people who aren't in Cape Town. Don't not come because I'm live streaming. And if you're able to be there, if you're able to walk, please join the march. As Phil said, the more numbers we have, the better. And for those of you that are watching this as well, I think this was a great interview to quickly just debunk any myths, debunk any rumors, and tell people, send this out to all your friends, your family, let them know what the Cape Independence Advocacy Group is all about. And someone asking, what about Corona? Corona is also invited.
Question. But look, it's a good question because it's come up, and one of the conditions of our march, in fact, the one thing the municipality was strictest on, is that we had to guarantee that we would impose the regulations. So there'll be distancing, and people are asked to wear masks, and we've got 150 Cape Independence masks that we're going to give out free for people to wear. So if we're going to wear a mask, then wear a Cape Independence mask, and then it's a win-win, isn't it? So actually, we're going to turn that to our advantage. When you look at marches, you're going to see a hell of a lot of these flags. I've got one. I haven't got one to hand. I'm looking to see if I can grab one. Someone here. In fact, just give me 2 seconds. I'll show you.
No worries.
So, there we go. So,
hey, there we go.
So we're giving those marches that. So what a fantastic way to respond, so we can be safe and we can still send a signal. Okay, you want us to wear masks? Fantastic. Let's be safe, and those masks are going to scream Cape Independence too.
Fantastic. I'm going to be there early so I can make sure that I grab one. All right. So in closing, Phil, is there anything that you feel? Oh, sorry. Wait, actually, I do have one more question. I know you touched on it earlier, the whole thing about how the mainstream media is trying to paint this as the whole movement as like a racist movement. Basically, if you're in support of Cape Independence, then you are racist because you want to break away from the ANC, right? In brief, what do you say to that?
Look over there. What can you say? You've watched, and I think you've seen on our feeds, we've been posting clips of people that are coming to the march. Actually, the vast majority of those clips are from people that aren't white. The majority of Cape Independence supporters we know from polling aren't white. At this organisation is going to be My Independence, which is a coloured organisation. A lot of you guys know Anati, who's the black guy that does the Cape Independence podcast. Anati's going to be there. The Brown Empowerment movement is going to be there. The community we're marching with, Clutersville, is a coloured community. So there's only so much we can do. People will believe what they want to believe. It's the great slur in South Africa, but the reality of the situation is the independence movement has got nothing to do with race. In fact, it's the very antithesis of it. If you look and see the reasons why, and we've polled, and so have other groups, and the polling is consistent. It shows there are two things that make people want to have Cape independence. They want to escape racism. They want genuine non-racialism, and they want to get an end to crime. And the two biggest things that people want is to get past racism and away from crime. So actually, the notion that it's racist is nonsense. Are there racist people in the Western Cape? Will there be people that get drawn to this on the fringes? Yes. Like in anything else, but as a movement, it's absolutely not racist. It's exactly the opposite. We're trying to save a rainbow nation, because the rainbow nation has been torn up, thrown on the floor, and trampled upon by the ANC. And we're trying to say it never belonged to them. The dream of a rainbow nation was ours, and it can't die with them. Actually, the Western Cape is the most diverse province in South Africa, and as an independent country, it'll be far more ethnically diverse than South Africa itself.
Fantastically put. Thank you so much, Phil, Craig. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to the description below. You can find all the information there, information about the event itself on the 5th of March. Please go to the Facebook event and say that you are going. This helps them cater for as many people and know how many people are actually going to be there, as well as set a reminder on this channel. There will be a live stream of the march. I'll be doing it in 1 hour intervals, capturing the entire day of the march. So please set a reminder to that, and you'll be updated as the day goes by. Everything's already in place. Phil, is there anything else you want to quickly say in closing?
No, look, I see Gentle Inflatables is wanting a free wine. Gentle, I'm a British guy, or I was born there. We're beer drinkers. I'll happily buy you a beer. If you want a wine, you must go and sit with the ladies.
Hey, you can sit with me, Gentle. I'm a wine drinker. All right. Phil, once again, thank you so much. I know that you're also going to be on Chris Wyatt's channel tomorrow evening, I believe.
I am, yeah. Thank you. Yes, I am.
Do you know what time?
I think it's also 7 o'clock, but I haven't got my diary in front of me. Sorry.
All right.
But I'm going to put it onto our. I'll put it onto our channels straight after this one. I didn't want to conflict the two, so we'll put it on now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, go follow Cape Independence Advocacy Group, and you'll get all the information on their social media for the next interview with Chris Wyatt. So yeah, once again, Phil, thank you so much, and I'll see you on Saturday. As for everybody else watching, I do have another show at 8:30 with Yanni. We're going to be talking about, it's our Tech Tuesday show, and we're going to be talking about Android versus iOS. A very heavy debate there. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're keen, come join us. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't see you there, I'll hopefully see you at the next one. Stay safe. Cool. I'll chat to you guys later. Good night.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks.